Let's talk a little bit about the Switch 2 and other 10th generation consoles. I really want to speak on them, so that's exactly what this video is going to be about. As most people know at this point, the Switch 2, which is officially called the Switch 2, it's not just a rumor name at this point. That literally is what the name is. And it's the best method of how to go about marketing this thing if we're going to keep it real. Simply because, why change what obviously works? Nintendo seems to be taking a very up-to-date approach about this. I think back to how they went about consoles such as the Wii U, and how they tried to have a successor to a prior console that was successful, but going about it in a way that was perhaps missing the point and just didn't really work out. Though that failure of a system ended up being what was essentially the test for the Switch Uno. And so here we are now with the Switch 2, which is just a continuation of what worked with the original Switch. And then outside of the Switch 2, when it comes to the 10th gen, you also have the next gen Xbox and PlayStation 6. It's safe to say that the PlayStation 6 is going to be called the PS6, unless they call it PlayStation Orb, as was rumored with PlayStation 4, which definitely would have made sense in a line of consoles that go off of numbers for sequels. As for the Xbox, they'll probably call it Xbox Z or something. Xbox Extreme. Extremes. You know, it's extreme, but with a Z at the end. You know, it's super extreme. It's bringing out those 90s vibes. Maybe the next Xbox will just be Windows 12. Imagine that. It is the operating system that is the brand new console. That would be incredible. It would be so Microsoft. And that's all I have to really say about that. But when it comes to the purpose of these consoles and what it's going to be, well, if we're being entirely realistic here, it's hard to say that there's going to be much purpose of anything regarding the next Xbox or PlayStation, with the direction that console gaming has been going in for the past more than few years at this point now. When you look at how exclusives are handled, for example, with how every single exclusive is now coming to PC. It's slowly starting to happen with PlayStation now, with PlayStation exclusives having a PC port right at launch. Hence, Helldivers 2. And I wouldn't be shocked at all if, when it comes to Marvel Spider-Man 3, for example, that game potentially ends up releasing alongside the PlayStation 6 version, let's say, on PC the same day. Now, is it all guaranteed anything like that's going to happen? No, I'm talking out of my ass here, obviously, but I'm still making that point because more and more it's very much a possibility. There was a time where there was no console exclusives put out onto PC in the way that it's happening now. But yet, here we are, which, thinking about it, it's pretty fascinating to me how, in the case of Halo, the franchise that started off Xbox, started out being a PC game as well, only for that to change over time. Starting with Halo 3, it was on Xbox consoles only, till you get to more recent years where now all the games are coming to PC, excluding Halo 5. And I mention it because going from how Halo started that way with Xbox to where Xbox exclusives are now, with everything being an Xbox platform essentially for Microsoft, and how it's about Game Pass and streaming services as a whole, hence the direction of where the world's heading at the moment, it just feels as if it's really all come full circle. And look, I understand Microsoft's strategy, but in a way it still feels like a cope for how they went about fucking up the Xbox One launch and reveal back in the day. And then in the PlayStation side of things, Sony hasn't been doing that great this generation either, and more they're getting into that same state that Microsoft's in when it comes to exclusives, just going back to them regarding this topic. It's really just a matter of, at what point is Sony just going to completely break down the dam completely so that it reaches a point where all PlayStation exclusives launch on PC on the same day. Which, I know I'm mainly talking from the perspective of someone who plays on PC games, but my ultimate point is that each specific platform just has less uniqueness, and more as consoles are becoming PCs, which they have been for years now at this point, they're slowly losing that identity. Everything is just becoming sterile. And I know the state of exclusives as a whole is still going off that term, regardless of what it even means at this point. I know this state of gaming, this aspect of gaming, the industry for a while now, this generation hasn't been as up to snuff. You know, it hasn't been as up to par, but obviously that can change. As for when and how that does, well, it just comes down to whenever it's meant to happen. You know, when we reach the next year of when there's a shit ton of game releases, it just really comes down to that. We'll just have to wait and see how that all comes about. But consoles themselves just don't excite like they used to, and there's a lot of aspects of gaming that are very much of the same feeling for me, such as graphics, for example, which it's a given that graphics were eventually going to slow down regarding the leaps in between each generation, simply because it reaches a point where you can only get so realistic with graphics, which maybe at some points we'll start seeing more of a trend of games focusing more on art style instead, and just general aesthetic, as opposed to as realistic of visual fidelity as humanly possible, because again, that can only be taken so far at this point. In general, it just really feels like Nintendo is the only one of the three with an upcoming console that seems to have some inkling of an actual identity. They are very much the old guard in a lot of ways when it comes to their games. And it's a matter of, would we ever see Nintendo's games on PC or Xbox or PlayStation? Not a chance, as far as I'm concerned. For all Nintendo's stubbornness, this is one aspect of their old head stubbornness I hope never changes, because it makes them stand out even more now. Because before we know it, for all we know, we're going to start seeing Uncharted on Xbox. And, I mean, you look at the constant rumors and potential leaks from what I can recall. Halo on PlayStation and Switch. And I know that this is a specific case, but in the case of Call of Duty games now coming to Switch 2 in the future because of Microsoft back in 23 talking about deals with COD coming to Nintendo consoles. Who's to say that wasn't just foreshadowing what's to come for other franchises as well? And then when you look at, again, all the rumors and how it's just consistent, it would make sense as to why you'd think this would end up being the case. And look, rumors should be taken with a grain of salt, but when they perpetuate and they don't stop, and they just keep snowballing, you gotta think at some point there is some level of an inkling of truth, if they don't just stop. If it's clear, it doesn't just feel like any random leaker is just talking out of their ass. At some point, something's got to give to where you think, maybe something about this is real. Granted, can total lies still be a thing even in that regard, where an entire industry can be fooled? Yes, it's happened in the past in gaming. In the case of Xbox and PlayStation exclusives coming to each other's console platforms, I don't think it's bullshit, and I think that's inevitable. If you aren't at least seeing Uncharted on Xbox, then you're at least going to see Halo and Gears of War on PlayStation. Why is my fucking hair in my way when I barely have any? My hair is getting in my face. See, it's like keep rubbing it. Point is, when it comes down to it, it's really a matter of what is the point of this generation that's upcoming. Is anyone truly excited for it? Is anyone really expecting anything from this next generation? And what is going to be the thing that gives regarding games not feeling as up to date with pushing boundaries forward? There are games, there are examples that do that, but we're still missing some of that, you know? And I know many people look at previous points in times as being a golden era of games, and whatever you consider to be that is more than fair, obviously. You know, like anything, gaming, being that it's been around for as long as it has now, and like anything that's around long enough, it eventually reaches a point where there's eventually going to be some bad points with good points. There's going to be the highs with the lows. It's an inevitable balance that affects everything in any way, shape, or form, whether it's gaming, music. And so now it's just about, where do we go from here? You know, that isn't just handheld devices, isn't just having games that you can play on your palm as a result of Elon Musk synchronizing your life and existence with whatever game is releasing. Maybe he'll make his own game where he's really saluting in a very particular fashion, and that's the whole game. It's quite patriotic from what I've last checked about it. All in all, that's really what I can think of to say regarding this topic for the video. How the industry goes from here is really just a matter of, well, fuck if I know. This shit's so unpredictable. I think all signs lead towards some sort of gaming industry crash if we aren't already living within a very slow one. One that's maybe already been set off and is bound to go from there, and that'll be a necessary refresh when it comes to the industry. Because that eventually does happen, you know? Things like this do happen. Shit happens, but like anything in life, it's necessary in the grand scheme of things. But that's all I really have to say when it comes to this video. What are your guys' thoughts on this topic? What do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? How are we feeling about consoles? Are you excited for the next generation consoles? I'm most excited for the Switch too, but of course everyone has their own opinion, so leave them in the comment section below. Make sure to subscribe and set the notification bell to all notifications for future uploads, along with getting a membership on the channel. It's $2.99 each month, and you get early access to select videos along with priority comments when it comes to commenting on videos. Join the Discord server as well. It's quite active at this point. And that's all I got to say. I'll see you for the next one. Until then, I'm out. Later.